Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of What If Civilization Started Over. In the last episode, we saw a extremely big event happening, which was the Great Siberian Revolution. It started off in the Dark Cyan Siberian nation and spread out into currently four other nations, being Lake Baikal, Russia, and Japan. And we also saw the Tibetan Revolution continue on. We saw a great mess happening in the North Sea, which I may or may not call the Great North Sea Mess. And that was it in the last episode. So if you enjoy, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get started. So firstly, we're actually going to come down to New Zealand. As you see these little islands right here, that they are currently under the Catalonian control. Um, those ones aren't actually. Neither's neither of these up here. However, that one big island, mm, this one big island right here, that is under Catalonian control officially. I just want to point that out. And like most other small little islands that are under color of another country, most of those are canon unless I fix them. Then they were other, except for the colonial points, they weren't canon. Like these are canon, these are canon. Yeah. All right, now let's get to some of the biggest events we've ever seen. So here we have the Tibetan Revolution, as we have seen recently. And if we take a look at the province map, which I finally decided to finish, uh, I also did a bit of messing with the map up here. Uh, this is supposed to be for most spots. I didn't actually end up finishing though. Basically what it is these groups are different province, or they control all these different provinces. I actually only did it for these ones right up here, and I did like two provinces down in Tibet. Um, but I'm gonna start using provinces just to make it a bit easier. That's a complete lie. Uh, but let's continue looking at the Siberian Revolution to start. As this is, well, it's growing extremely big. As now this entire part of Russia has fallen, and everybody knows Russia's fueling this. And I'm sure everyone has three guesses for who's fueling the Tibetan Revolution. I'm guessing the three countries you would think are fueling it are the Great Empire, Bangladesh, or South China. If you thought it was somebody else, well, you're absolutely wrong. It is one of those three nations, but that will remain undisclosed until later this episode. I will be telling you. But we see the Siberian Revolution has definitely expanded out greatly. It has taken over a large portion of of the northern Baikal nation, and has even started its spread in Japan, as it took over all of these northern parts and took over this part from Siberia. And like everybody knows who's doing this. So no one's really too upset at this point. Like this was like, I mean, obviously people are upset, but like this was this just got extremely out of hand, and now almost every alliance in the world is working together to solve this. Because you have the Square Alliance, which or actually every military alliance is working together for this. This got extremely out of hand. Everybody knows that. Everybody's like, okay, we need to stop this or it's gonna get crazy. So, obviously the Square Alliance and the Triangle Alliance are starting to work with this. And at this point, most people know the Cross, or should know at least, the Cross Alliance and Square Alliance work extremely close together. There are two alliances in the world that are not helping with this. Both of them are economical. The first one is actually, there's only one. The fir- and it is the 4-point star economic alliance here in North America. Most of the members in it or actually all of the members in it are part of the Triangle Alliance. However, there are other economic alliances that are sending aid to this, which are the Mercedes Economic Alliance and the Indian Ocean Economic Alliance. So those are these two especially, or the biggest funding for, or so there's aren't any countries that are actually funding this anymore, at least in that, not that anyone knows of, but there are countries that are funding against it, which are is the three big countries that are now funding against this revolution. They're funding countries that are fighting this are the RPGAU, South Chinese Union, and Catalonia. The Great Union, they're still funding it, but they have less ties with South China than Catalonia does, and Catalonia is like the number one nation that is, or like they're probably the second best nation in terms of um diplomacy with South China. The best is probably going to be Korea, but we'll see how this all plays out in a little bit, as there aren't going to be too many events this episode. Alright, moving down to the Tibetan Revolution, things are finally getting sorted out for this. And it's going to end in Tibet getting a lot of land, and RPGAU they're going to be upset. But so let's take a look at what the peace treaty will look like for this, and then I'll finally disclose who started this. Alright, so here we're going to take a look at what the Tibetan Revolution peace treaty will look like. We'll start off with Tibet getting what they get, which is all of this land here. Um, it's mainly just because like the RPGAU's unstable lands were kind of right in here as well. So we do see all of these getting returned. However, well, with the loss in this war, we also see the RPGAU is uh they're not essentially forced. They're highly suggested to get rid of that claim. Um, just Tibet doesn't like it that they have a claim along their border now, or they would have a claim along their border. But we also see Pakistan returns. Um, the the actual Tibetans, they didn't want this land, but this land was kind of just, it was also really unstable. So we see the Pakistanis. Um, crap, I don't have capitals on this map. Oh well. We're gonna say this is their capital. If I was on the right layer, like I never am, because I just recorded alternate future of what if civilization started over, and definitely did not put the right but definitely was not on the right layer. If you watched it, you'll know. But now we're gonna move up to the we're gonna move up back to the Siberian Revolution, as things are starting to slow down for them. There's maybe one country that you could name that is still supporting these guys. Of course, I'm sure someone might know what country it is, but you can take a wild guess at who's still doing it. It is a weaker nation, but it's still enough. Um, and these guys, they're still growing their core territory along the provinces. Um, it'll look something like this. This is just gonna be a quick rough sketch, but pretty much anything north of the line I'm drawing here is what's now considered their core territory, even though some of it isn't in their own territory. But countries are starting to get a bit mad at Russia at this point. Um, yeah, around 8. Right. So we see these countries don't. Um, yeah, I forgot what I was saying. Right. But all of this territory is core, not core of something. And this, it'll just look something like that. So now the Siberian Revolution is greatly expanded on, and they once again start pushing into Russia. However, now Russia's starting to get themselves back together, but they don't do it quick enough, and they're still they're still pushed into a bit. But this revolution has decided it is not done spreading into other countries. Three more countries, three more, will be getting, or will be starting to get affected by the Great Siberian Revolution. These are the North Chinese country, more in Lake Baikal. This brown country in the far north, also again in Lake Baikal, and now China as well. And everyone's now mad at Russia. At this point, Russia has gotten this thing into so many different countries that they're saying, "Oh, it's not our fault anymore. These someone else is supplying them. We're not." And nothing is flying at this point. So Russia's gonna say like, "Can you guys stop?" And the Siberians are like, "Absolutely not. In fact, why don't we use our new supplies that look oddly familiar to the Russians, maybe or maybe not, because there's some of these same supplies on their border. But they're going to use some of these new supplies to force their way through this country. Um, and Russia's like, wait a minute, we recognize these. We recognize these as German. That's right, Germany was supplying these guys against their own allies. And Russia's calling out Germany. They're calling out the whole Cross Alliance now. Cross Alliance fights back, and everything's just starting to get so much bigger and bigger and bigger until eventually the RPGAU spills a bombshell. They figured out who started the Tibetan Revolution, which, in kind of a turn, did start off the the basis of the Siberian Revolution. And you know who they call out? They call out South China. If you thought South China was the one supplying the Tibetan Revolution, Congratulations, you did it. You figured it out. But once this is found out, the RPGAU and the Triangle Alliance will declare war on the Square Alliance, and in turn, the Cross Alliance will join on the side of the Square Alliance in order to fight back against the ones who started the downfall of them and their allies, or them and their enemies, and this will officially begin World War II. So, if you enjoy today's episode of What If Civilization Started Over, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.